We're back here the whole 9 yards on a Thursday afternoon. Drew PN here with Brandon Krikorian. Brandon, how's it going?
Whew, just excited for tonight. The draft's tonight, and yeah, I don't know, just looking forward to that.
Same. So our previous mock draft that we did, I took a stance of like what I would do if I were these teams more so than what I think will happen. Today, I plan on doing what I think is going to happen. I'll throw trades in there where I think trades will happen. I think we end up seeing less trades than maybe people think, but I still think there are plenty of trades that could happen that would be ideal. How are you feeling?
About like the trades.
Just about, the draft.
Well, yeah, I think like I said when we did our video, or at least when we did our separate videos, I said the draft starts after 5, and I think that's still true. I think you would probably agree with that. So I'm just excited for not only for our mock draft, but then also just the real draft, what happens after pick 5. And I think that's when the trades will probably happen. If there are, I kind of agree with you. I don't think there will be as many trades as people are probably thinking. But I just think that's when we're going to see guys rise and guys fall. It's someone you probably thought would go at like 7 or 8, maybe going at 12 or 13. I just think that's kind of when the draft's really going to start. And that's when all the buzz is, I think, really going to happen between that, 6 to 14, I guess I could say.
Yeah, no, I agree. I guess without further ado, we'll just get into our mock drafts. I'll let you go first here at 1. For the record, I already said it, but all my picks are going off what I think will happen. I will also talk about those picks, obviously. So just because I think X person gets drafted at number 5 doesn't mean that I think he's the 5th best player in the draft. So yeah.
Yeah, this first one, it's been easy the entire time, but it was also, I think like maybe 10 minutes ago, I think Woj just tweeted out that the Pistons are going to take Cade Cunningham. Like, that is official. So it's not like that we didn't know that or anything, but obviously I was still going to take him no matter what. It's pretty easy. It just doesn't, why would you not go with the guy who's 6'8", can handle the ball, could shoot, has a lot of upside defensively that people have been talking about, obviously with his size. So it's a no-brainer. That's a guy you build your franchise around. So it's a pretty easy pick.
No, I agree. I think Cade Cunningham will get drafted at 1. I would take him at 1. I'd listen to trade offers, but unless I get something that's absolutely insane, Cade's the pick at 1. I don't think we need to discuss it any further.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, what do you think? What do you think his floor is and what do you think his ceiling is?
Well, I think there's like, if you have 2 ways for his career to go, I think the worst way would be that he can handle the ball for you. He can still make outside shots. That's for sure. He's never going to be a star player for you, obviously, if it's the worst way his career is going to go. I think he'd be a key, like not like a key role player, but he'd be a good backup point guard for you, a guy who can space the floor. And if that defense steps up a little bit, he can at least play bigger minutes down the stretch. Obviously, if he's on the starting lineup, he probably wouldn't be playing the biggest minutes, but I think he's a guy worse can just be a role player for you and can at least give you some stuff, just at a lower level than, a star would give you.
Yeah, no, I think his floor is a starting point guard. And I think his floor would be, he's just not quite quick enough to take maybe some of the more elite defenders right off the dribble and just go right to the hoop, or he's not good enough of a shooter outside. He never quite becomes elite there. And I don't think he's going to be like an elite scorer type. Like, he's not going to be a guy that puts up 30 plus a game. I don't think at all in his career, honestly. So I think that's kind of his floor is, maybe the 4th best player on the team, a guy who's a solid point guard, but he's not, that max contract guy. I think his ceiling though is he's 100% that max contract guy. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer who can make outside shots if you give them to him, or he can create his own outside shot, maybe not at a James Harden level, but at a very solid level. Obviously sees the floor at an elite level, rivaling maybe that of a Chris Paul or LeBron James. He's not going to give you 30 plus, but he gives you 25 on super efficient scoring and makes everybody around him better, which is something that a lot of the number 1 picks we've seen don't do nearly as well as somebody like I'm hoping Cade will do. That's my ceiling for him.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for him is being able to find and create his own shot. If he could do that, then yeah, I think he could be, a 25 point per game guy. But until that happens, again, that's going to take time. He's not going to do it his first year anyways. But that's, if he really wants to reach his ceiling, he's going to have to be able to do that. So, and that's a big thing. I kind of relate it to LaMelo in that, they both see the ball, see the court really well. I think LaMelo is better at that, but if they can create, being able to create their own shot consistently, then that's when they'll turn into that like superstar type player. And LaMelo's already been better at that in 1 year, so I'm assuming Cade will probably follow that same path. So yeah, I think I kind of view both those players very similarly.
Yeah. Number two, I'll let you go first. Number two, because we might not disagree, but I think I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
Well, I was gonna say I did see that you in your first mock draft took Mobley and not Green here. In mine, I took Green and took Mobley, third. I think we could say that they're obviously going to go top three, but yeah, I mean, I'm going to take Jalen Green kind of for the reasons I said when I first did my mock draft was that scoring for him is not a problem. That's never going to be a problem for him. He's always going to be able to get a shot, to make shots, to score, whether it's attacking the basket or taking jump shots or going to the free throw line, which I think he's obviously going to improve on. He has a perfect build for that. He's going to have the ball a lot, I would assume, even though he's not like a ball handler type. I kind of compared him to Anthony Edwards in that he's going to take a lot of shots for a team that's going to be really bad. So I think the scoring is not going to be a problem. And I think that's exactly what Houston wants. They know they're going to lose. They want to lose for the next 2 years, but that's when they still have their 2 first-round picks that are theirs before giving them up to, Oklahoma City. So they want to lose these next 2 years. So I don't think they have a problem with him taking, 20, 25 shots a game. So I think he's just the perfect player for them. I think if they were in a different situation, they'd probably take Mobley, but the current situation that they're in and them needing to tank these next 2 years, and it's something against Green, but I think he's the perfect player for that to happen. So I think Green is the pick at number 2.
I think bottom line, even if you got Cade, whatever spot, even if the Rockets got Cade right now, I don't think that's enough to move the needle in terms of not tanking, I guess. I still think the Rockets are going to be bad unless something insane happens, but I think they're going to take Green. So I agree with you. I'll have Green at number 2 on this mock. I think it happens. So when we look back, well, I guess just when we, in 6 months, when we look back at this draft, I want to look back and say, how many picks did I actually get right? So did the Rockets actually pick Green? The draft before this, I want to look back in 6 months and say, was I right on these players? Was I right that, Evan Mobley would be the second best player in this draft? So I'll say that. But I think Green goes number 2. It's what's kind of been mocked by a lot of guys who have the insides. Originally, I guess kind of during, just a while back before the draft got hyped, Mobley was the second guy. Green ended up rising back up. I think he was like the number 1 high school guy coming out of high school.
Yeah, he was.
He kind of fell down, but I think his ceiling realistically is really high. I talked about it. His ceiling is a guy who's an elite scorer. He's a better scorer than Cade, maybe not a better player at a ceiling than Cade, but he would be a better scorer. I don't know if he's ever going to be a great defender. I think he has potential to be a better than average defender, but I don't know that he definitely doesn't have potential to be an elite defender in my mind. And I wouldn't bet on him being an above average defender. I don't know about his playmaking. We'll see. He showed flashes of his playmaking. There are plays when he finds the open guy, but there are also plays when he kind of just puts his head down and either rushes to the basket or just settles on a mid-range that's slightly contested. I don't know that Green's going to end up being the second best player in this draft, but I think the Rockets take him, and I think they think he's going to be the second best player in this draft.
Yeah, I think I don't think he's going to be the best player in this draft either. I think Mobley's actually going to be the best player in this draft.
Do you think he's going to bet on the Cade, or?
I think he will. I think it depends on the situation, but I think if you look back on their careers, I think Mobley has the most upside just because, and we'll get into it probably in the next pick, but I guess I'll just save it for that. But just Green really quickly. I think I totally agree that obviously defense is really never going to be a big part of his game, if at all, honestly. But I think he's going to be the perfect example of what like a Booker is probably grown into be. I think that he could definitely grow into that where, the ball handling's there. The ability to lead is going to come, but just his scoring ability, the way he could score, whether it's from the outside, the inside, the free throw line, the mid range. I think that's his perfect game. And I've seen the comparisons like a Levine or a Beal. I think any one of those guys, I think, is a perfect comparison. A guy who just knows how to score, and that's not all he could do, but that's obviously just his strongest suit, and it's always going to be his strongest point of his game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we'll get into number 3. I guess I'll go first on this. I think this is where trades talks start to come in. I don't think trade talks. I mean, I think there will be talks. I don't know that anything happens though. I mean, I haven't been, hard following Woj's Twitter account. Maybe there's been more serious rumors, but I don't think so. I think the Cavs take Mobley here. I think they would love to have Mobley at 3. Green, maybe they want Green too, but I think the whole situation with Sexton and Garland, if they can't find a great trade, they might not do anything. I don't really know. It's just such a mystery to me. I would be shocked though if they ended up coming back with Sexton and Garland as their 1 and 2. So whether it's either Green does go to 3 or they trade Sexton in a sign and trade or something, and something happens. But I'd be surprised if Sexland exists in 2021/2022. I think Mobley gets drafted at 3. I think we'll see what happens to Jared Allen, but Mobley to me is a guy who can, I mean, I talked about in the other draft, he can kind of just do everything. I don't see him having a big weakness in his game. The only weakness I really could see is that he can't guard the dominant bigs in today's game, but I don't know that anybody really can. And I think he still has a better shot than most centers in the league. Gobert might be the guy that you say might have the best shot, but Gobert's not going to run up on the perimeter and guard Embiid. He's not going to go on the perimeter and guard Jokic nearly as well as a guy like Mobley probably could be able to. And Mobley's going to be a much better defensive or offensive guy than Gobert. And Mobley's not going to be a center that in 3 years I can say, I would love to have this guy on my team in the playoffs, where Gobert, I mean, when you sign Gobert to a max extension, you can bank on the fact that you're going to have a really good shot at getting the playoffs every year just because he's so good at defensively and the advanced statistics are so in his favor. But in bigger moments in the playoffs, when it's not just a tale of, advanced analytics and there's real situations in these games and Gobert really can't play in them or can't play well in them, that's a situation where I think Mobley can really flourish.
Yeah, I think that defensively, he already, just like Jalen Green, he already has defense, just the other side completely locked down. That's something that's never going to go away. It's just the scoring and the ability to, I don't know, get his own shot. I think at worst he could be he wouldn't, I guess Gobert just defensively with, obviously, the screen setting and everything that the rebounding that Gobert does, obviously probably wouldn't be able to compete with at his worst. But defensively, he'd always be there. But at his best, I think he could potentially be what Anthony Davis is, honestly. I mean, that's kind of why I said I think he's going to be the best player coming out of this draft. Because the defense is already there. The offense is going to get better. It's already pretty good. The passing is pretty good for what it is. He's going to have to develop some stuff inside. The outside shooting is not terrible for what it is. Obviously, that's not going to be a huge part of his game, but just his ability to mesh with probably any team, any kind of players. He's just that type of guy. And everything that he can do, just everything that he can do with the ball, that's going to get better as the years go on. So I just think that if Cleveland doesn't end up trading this pick, which I don't think they will unless they get blown away by an offer, probably from the Thunder or maybe the Magic, but I don't think they will trade this pick. I think they'll view that this guy is just a supreme talent and that having him is just better than, moving down 3 or 4 spots and then getting like a James Bouknight or a Scottie Barnes or whatever. I think this guy is just clearly the best player in this draft. For a Cavs team that's been pretty mediocre, obviously since LeBron's left, even without those 4 years that he came back, they've been pretty bad for basically a decade. So I think this is just the perfect guy for their team. And I honestly hope they don't trade it because I think it's just a huge mistake.
Yeah, I wouldn't really trade this pick either. I just, again, unless you're getting blown away, I don't see picks 5 through 10 being enough to move. I don't see it. So I would agree with you.
Yeah.
So picks 1 through 3, we agree so far on what will happen. Pick 4, I think we'll probably agree on as well. I'm going to go with Suggs. I've talked about it in the other draft. I'm going to stop saying I've talked about it in the other draft because that's obvious. But Suggs is going to be a guy who I think will be a leader on this Raptors team. His floor to me is a really high energy guy who can be a starter in the league, but he's probably that 4th or 5th best player on a team. He doesn't get that max contract, but he can shoot the ball. He can play defense. He can pass the ball. Just he doesn't do anything at a super elite level because he just doesn't have, not necessarily doesn't have the athleticism. He just doesn't have the stature to become, that dominant player in this league. But I think his ceiling is, he can shoot the ball super well. He can dribble the ball really well. He can play make. He can defend. He can pretty much do anything that a 6'4" player could do. So I think his ceiling is a guy who could be a number 1 or a number 2 on a championship team. And I think he has the best potential to win immediately in this league because he's going to the team in the top four that has the best potential to start winning immediately. And I think he's probably maybe the most NBA ready player in the first four. It's debatable, but I think he's definitely not as raw as Green to me. So yeah, I think his ceiling might be slightly lower, but I mean, if you told me that Suggs is better than Green, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a better career. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a better career than K, just because if Detroit just messes everything up, I wouldn't be surprised if he told me he had a better career than Mobley, because frankly, out of the top four teams, I trust Toronto. I trust Toronto more than all three teams combined.
Yeah, I definitely do also. And I agree that he probably has the best chance to be the most successful guy, not stats wise or accolade wise, at least not individual award wise, but just team success wise. He fits. He's like Mobley, but just better in the sense that like he's not going to be selfish at all at any point in his career. Most likely, I would assume. He's a guy who's going to give you, he can give you 30 points a night, or 30 points in any given night, but then he could also give you like 15 to play outstanding defense. He could pass, he could rebound if he wants to. He can play defense at a pretty good level already. I think he just fits with any team. I think the Raptors is the perfect team for him to go to. Like you were saying, it's just a great organization. You have veteran guys to lead you. You still have a couple younger guys, assuming they don't trade them, and Siakam and Fred VanVleet that are at least still there at championship experience. So I think it's a perfect team for him to go to. They definitely have the best chance of winning right now compared to the first three teams. And yeah, I just, he's been the number 4 pick, I think, ever since the college season ended. And it hasn't changed. I don't think it will change. So yeah, I think it's just a perfect fit for him and also for the Raptors.
If you made me rank these 4 players, how I think their careers will go and where I'd rank them all time at the end of the day, I think Suggs will be 3. And I think he has a potential to be 2.
Yeah, I think he probably could. I think, again, individual award wise, I don't think he's ever gonna, he's never gonna win an MVP. He's never gonna win a Defensive Player of the Year. He may be a couple time All Star guy, because the team's always going to be good. I think he's always gonna be a guy who's gonna be on a really good team. So I think he can make a couple All Stars, but
I think he
I
make
think
more
he's
than a couple.
well, we'll see. I mean, again, like I don't know. I just think I think at the lowest he's still going to be an all-star type player, just because his team's always going to be good. But I think that I think a Mobley would be a number 1. We'll see with the Green or a Cade. I think Cade probably would be above Green, but I don't know. I just really like Suggs. I think he just, like I said, he's a perfect fit for any team.
Number 5, this is probably where the draft starts. I'll let you go first.
Well, like I said before, I think it starts after this pick. It's pretty easy for me. I do wish it was another team, only on the sake of the player, because I think this guy would fit better on kind of some other teams. I don't think the Magic really fit him, only because and I heard you saying in your mock draft about their player development, you don't really trust them. I don't really trust them either. I guess I'll say my pick, but it's Scottie Barnes. I think he's another guy. He fits. There's a lot of guys in this draft that just fit really well with team chemistry and fit on teams that just know how to, winning organizations. And I wish he was just going to a different team. If he was going to the Warriors, I think that'd be a perfect fit for him. A Raptors would be a good fit for him. But he's probably going to end up here at 5, playing with Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz. I don't know how well that's going to be good. I don't know how good that's going to be for him, just because those guys, it seems like, are probably going to be, kind of like what they have in Cleveland, where they're just going to be guys who kind of control the ball and shoot a lot. I don't think that fits well with a guy like Scottie Barnes. He kind of needs the ball to be able to play make, get others involved. He's not the best shooter, but I don't think that matters as much. I think everything else that he does, especially defensively, rebounding wise, and like I said, playmaking wise, at his size, I think is just amazing. So I wish he was going to another team, not the Magic, but again, that seems like where he's going to end up, probably at 5. It's the Magic.
Yeah, this was difficult for me because I think this is a pick that the Orlando Magic would look to package 5 and 8 and maybe move up or look for something else. But at the end of the day, I don't think anything gets done. I think they take Scottie Barnes. I think they take Scottie Barnes. There's potential they could go for a guy like a James Bouknight, who I'd probably want them to at 5, or maybe Jonathan Kuminga, who I'd like over Barnes probably. I don't know how well Scottie Barnes is going to pan out in Orlando. We've seen guys that I mean not the same position or play style, but Oladipo was a guy who struggled in Orlando but showed flashes, and then finally started to blossom outside of Orlando and mainly in Indiana. But yeah, it's tough because honestly, anybody that gets picked or by Orlando, I'm scared to like hype them up. But Scottie Barnes is a guy who, to me, I don't think he's ever going to be a great shooter or maybe even a shooter in general. I don't know if he's ever going to develop a good enough shot, especially on the Magic, but he's going to give you probably elite defense. He's a guy who may be at his ceiling able to win a defensive player of the year or multiple. He's a guy at his ceiling who may be one of the best passers that's not a point guard in the
Yep.
league, I think. Um, he can guard positions. I don't know if he'll ever be able to guard, a quick one or a quick two, but he'll be able to guard positions three through five, pretty much no matter what, no matter who it is. And he'll be able to guard some ones and twos. So that's his ceiling. His floor, to me, his floor is a guy who is a good defender, is an okay passer in the NBA, but can't shoot the ball. And you really struggle to find playing time for him. And I think this is a guy who could end up being a bust. Maybe not a bust at number 5, but just a guy who just doesn't pan out at number 5.
Well, I think his floor, honestly, I think the defense is always going to be there. The passing and playmaking is always going to be there. I think the thing would just be the shooting. Like you get to a point where you kind of need a guy who could be a shooter on a team, whether you have a star player that, is always going to drive. Like if he was on like the Mavs, I think there's paths where he could work, and then there's other paths where he wouldn't work because you need shooters around Luka. But again, his ability to play make and play defense on a team like that, I think could be very valuable. But it depends on how you use him, how it would work out with him and Luka. Obviously, he's not going to be on the Mavs, but I think there's definitely situations where he really works, and there's other situations where he probably doesn't work. And this is a guy I really like, so I hope it does work for him. So I think he can be a really valuable player. Obviously, the comparison is Draymond Green because they do very similar things, and I think that's a really good comparison because I think it is true. So I think that's really what his ceiling is. A guy who could, again, he's probably never going to really get you like 15 points a game. He'll probably get you like 10 to 13 or somewhere around that, kind of what he was doing in college, to be honest. But I think that's just what he is. I think that he already knows who he is, which I think really helps. And for any team, I think that that's honestly one of the bigger things, that drafting a guy who knows who he is, then still has the chance to even develop into someone better. I think that's always what you want when you're drafting someone, especially, someone who's, 19 years old, 18 years old. I mean, you don't really know what these guys are going to become. So for someone to know who he is, I think that's huge.
Yeah, I agree. I guess pick number 6. I'll go first. To me, it's between two people that OKC is going to be thinking of. I think they are, they're clearly trying to package 6 and a bunch of other stuff to move up. I don't think it happens. So I think they have to kind of stick here at 6. I don't think they're interested in moving down really, unless they think they can move down and get a Book Knight, but I don't think that's really safe to assume. It's between Book Knight and Kuminga. I think they take Book Knight. I think they love Book Knight. I think Book Knight's risen on draft boards. I think Book Knight has potential to be a top 4 guy in this draft. I think his shooting might be the best in the draft potentially. He didn't shoot great from 3 in his college, in college at all. He shot like 31% last year, but his free throw rate was like over 80%. I think he's a guy whose shot will translate to the NBA. Teams have apparently been impressed with his shooting. His mechanics look good. I don't think he's a guy that I look at his shot and I say, that doesn't look great, even if his percentages don't say that his shot looked horrible. I think he's going to be a good shooter. I think he'll be a good scorer. I think his ceiling is a really good score that you can pair next to SGA, and maybe at the end of the day, they both are max contract players, and that's maybe that your 1A and 1B trying to compete. I don't know if that gets it done, but I think that's his ceiling. And his floor, I think his floor is a really good 6-man, a guy who can be a 6-man of the year candidate a while. But I think what I think he'll end up being is a really good scorer, a solid playmaker, maybe not the best defender ever, but I think he'll be good enough. And I think him and SGA will be a good backcourt, and a backcourt that gets talked about in top 5 backcourts for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
if they stay on OKC, that is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, again, like I said, this is where the draft starts. It's between 2 players, between James Bouknight and then obviously Jonathan Kuminga for me. In my first one, I had them taking Kuminga. I I don't know. I mean, I think that it just seems like Kuminga fits them better. Like that's just a guy they've seemed to draft it in the past. Unless they're going to change that strategy, which I think they probably should have done a couple years ago, but they haven't. It seems like Kuminga is that guy, athletic guy who has a lot of talent. Is very raw though, and the floor is clearly a bust, but that ceiling could definitely be a pretty good player in the NBA. So I don't know exactly where they're weighing in on that. Obviously they have a really good player development, so that definitely helps. But I think I still have them taking Kuminga at 6, and again, I think it just depends on. I don't think between him and Book Knight, they could go. I guess they could go wrong, obviously, but I think that between them, I think it's a pretty easy, it's pretty 50-50 between those two players. I just think Kuminga fits their team probably better in what they're looking for, like I was saying. So again, I think Book Knight at his worst is better than obviously Kuminga at his worst, but I just think Kuminga, I think that's just the type of guy they like drafting. And I think that's who they'll go with, assuming they don't trade, like you were saying. There's been no trades so far in our mock draft, but I just think they'll take him at 6.
So you're going with Kuminga?
Yeah, I'm going with Kuminga. Yeah, going with Kuminga at 6.
Okay, I think that's very realistic. I think it is between Book Knight and Kuminga. I'd be shocked if they took anybody else, assuming the first 5 picks we got right. I don't know that they grab a Giddey. I don't think they grab a Wagner. All right, so pick number 7. This is where trade talks start. I'll let you go first.
Yes. So with Kuminga going at 6 for me, I think 7 fits perfectly for James Bouknight. This is, I think this would be the perfect situation for Golden State if the draft did go like this. And I did see some reports today that they think OKC could take Bouknight at 6, which means they'd probably take Kuminga at 7. I don't think that works with this team. I think Bouknight is perfect. If that is the situation where Bouknight's not on the board, I think they'd probably skip Kuminga, to be honest, but I don't know. But yeah, I think Bouknight's perfect for them at 7. Like you said, a guy who could score right away on that team. You could have him and Wiggins, as your kind of like small. Well, I guess, Bouknight's a little bit smaller, but I don't know. Obviously, you have Clay and Steph as your 1 and 2, so you're not really going to change that. But I think having a guy like that who can score, he's probably going to come off the bench, obviously. So him being able to score off the bench like that, if he could keep that up, his 3-point percentage isn't where you want it to be, but his ability to score anyways, I think is huge. And like I said, a guy who knows what he is, he knows he could score. You hope that would translate to an NBA level. And again, he's always going to be playing with Steph or Clay on the court, so that I think that really helps with more spacing there. So I just think that Golden State for him is just a perfect situation. And I think they'd love to have him at 7, especially not having to trade up or anything like that to get him. I think him falling down to 7 for them would just be absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I ever since I kind of actually started to think about the Warriors' 7th pick, I think it's either if Kuminga falls to 7, I think they'd like to take Kuminga because I don't buy that they want to take a Mitchell at 7. A 6'2" point guard who would play off the bench and is already old. He's a junior coming out of Baylor. Do the Warriors want that at 7? I think you want some upside. I think Bouknight gives you that upside. But again, do I want Bouknight? I mean, he's a guy who can score off the bench, but he's not going to help you. He's not going to be a guy that he probably doesn't play in crunch time. He just probably doesn't, unless he works out really well for you. Kuminga would be the guy. So in my mock, they could take Kuminga. This is where my first trade is. It's a risky trade to mock because I don't know that it happens. It probably doesn't. But this is where I have Bradley Beal getting traded. So I have the Warriors unloading pretty much everything. 7, 14, Wiggins, Wiseman. And I think there's potential for even more than that, but I'm going to have that be the mock. I'm going to have 7, 14, Wiggins and Wiseman for Bradley Beal. I think they make the move for Bradley Beal. I think they realize, we could take Kuminga at 7, and we could take a guy like maybe Duarte at 14, or maybe Mitchell falls to 14. They get Mitchell at 14, which I think is a much better spot for him. But I think there has to be a trade in this draft. And to me, honestly, if I wasn't going to put a trade here, I'm not sure I have a trade in any of my draft and all of my mock draft here. So I put the trade here. I think Bradley Beal goes there. I think he makes them a legitimate contender. Just by themselves, Steph, Clay, and Draymond, I'm not sure that they're a legitimate contender. I think they're a contender, but I'm not sure that they're like for sure a contender. I think they would be, but this makes them, like that puts them in the legitimate conversation. Like you can't leave them out. Whereas without Bradley Beal, you probably could leave them out. I don't know that I would, but I think I think this is what happens. If they don't trade it, I would have them taking Kuminga at 7, and then a guy like Mitchell or Duarte or Trey Murphy at 14.
I think if this was 2 weeks ago, I think I maybe would like that, the odds of that trade happening. Again, it just being drafted today, I don't know if that's going to happen. It doesn't seem like Beal's going to at least get traded today, maybe in this offseason, but I don't think it's a bad trade, honestly. I mean, again, you're gonna have to give up 7-14 Wiggins and probably Wiseman for Beal. So I don't think it's a bad thing or a bad trade, proposal. I just think that the timing probably just doesn't work out. But who if the Wizards were there, who do you have them taking if that trade did happen?
If the Wizards got 7, I think it's probably Kuminga.
Okay.
I think they just go for the guy that has the most potential. If not Kuminga, it's difficult. Maybe they go for a Josh Giddey. Maybe they go for a Franz Wagner.
Well, the thing you would assume is that if they're trading Beal, they're going to trade Westbrook. So, not saying that it happened, same day, but you just have to assume that you're not going to have a point guard, not going to have a 2 guard. So you'd assume that you probably would want to take someone to fill those positions. So
you wouldn't have anything to me to be honest. And if you're not competing, yeah, you probably have to get a maybe, but that may be a position that might be something you take at 14. So yeah, in this world, if the Wizards pick here at 7, I would have them taking Kuminga. I don't think you need to draft off of fit if you're the Wizards. As the Warriors, you would draft off fit, but as the Wizards, you're not competing. I think you take the guy who you think could be the best player in the draft left. And I think that's Kuminga.
Yeah, no, I think that's. I think it'll be interesting to see if that really does happen. Again, there's really been no reports of that, but if
that's the scariest thing for me is I haven't heard the buzz, and I think it's still possible. I haven't heard the buzz, but I haven't heard the buzz of any trade, and I would be surprised if the lottery doesn't see a trade.
Yeah, there would definitely be a trade. That would be a huge trade, obviously. Like an all-star type player like that.
I don't want that trade to happen because it's difficult because would they sign Bradley Beal? Would they re-sign Bradley Beal? The Warriors, I don't know. But Beal's a guy I want the Celtics to get. Now, whether that be through trade or through free agency after this year, who knows? But I don't want a team to trade for Beal if the Celtics have the best chance at Beal. So I hope I'm wrong, honestly.
Yeah, I guess for that way also. Yeah. But I guess moving to 8. So that was 7. So 8's the Magic again. This is where I have my first trade. And I actually have the Spurs trading with the Magic to go up to 8. I haven't really thought, what the actual trade would be. But I'm just, this is a trade, at least I'm thinking about, is that the Spurs would go from 12 up to 8. And I think it'd be to take a guy who I actually left off my first mock draft, only because I didn't know where exactly he fit in those first. I did the first 15 picks. I didn't know exactly where he fit, but it seems like he probably does have a fit somewhere in this range. And I think that if you don't get him at 8, he's probably going 9 to the Kings. So I have them taking the Spurs trading up to 8 to go take the Alfred Sengun from overseas. The 18-year-old guy. Where did he play in Turkey? I think it was. So I have them going up to take him. I think that he'll be gone at 9 if let's say the Magic keep that pick. I don't think the Magic would take him. Maybe they do. I don't think they would. But I think the Kings would take him at 9 for sure. So I think the Spurs trade up. They take him. They always have a good chance with overseas guys. They obviously have a Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, guys like that. Even like a Davis Bertans, who they had before. Then he got an $80 million contract from the Wizards. So they're always good with overseas guys. Just the pure talent that this guy has. Obviously, he's pretty raw, but the pure talent that he has on the inside and the paint is just amazing for someone at his age. He averaged 19 points per game. At just 18 years old playing. Yeah, he played in Turkey in a Turkish league, which is not the second best league in the world, but it's one of the top leagues in the world, for sure. And he won MVP. So that's pretty impressive at a guy who's that young, has that much talent, put him in an organization and system that the Spurs have. I think that maybe not the first year, but the second, third, fourth year, I think he'd be improving rapidly, and I think he'd be a pretty good player for them. Again, he's a throwback guy. He's not going to shoot threes. He's not really going to space the floor. But if his defense can get just better to the point where it's average to possibly good, I think he can turn into a really good player for a team that, again, is going to go through a rebuild, obviously this year and the next couple of years. So I think it's a perfect situation for the Spurs to go trade up, make a move, and get someone that could really help out their future. Number 8.
I think that's a very interesting trade. I'm not exactly sure what the pieces would be. I'd have to think about it, but the Spurs would probably have to be giving up draft capital, unless you're looking to maybe send them a Derek White or a DeJounte Murray. I'm not sure exactly how the cap would work out, but
Yeah.
I have the Magic sticking here at 8. I have them taking Franz Wagner. Wagner, I don't love drafting off fit, but they have so many guards. They have so many bigs. And I think Wagner is really the best, like true actual forward, like more of a 3 that's in the draft right now. I think you could take a Giddy, but again, like you have guards already. I don't know that you'd want to do that. I don't know that I would go Wagner here at 8, but I think that the Magic over Wagner here at 8, this would be, I don't know that they trade 8 and don't trade 5. I just, maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know that if they trade back, I don't know who they look to get at 12. It'd be interesting. But yeah, I have them taking Wagner here at 8. That's a very interesting trade. I don't know that the Spurs would trade up to 8 for Şengün. I thought you were going to have them taking Giddy. I thought you were going to have them taking Giddy at 8. I think Giddy goes before Şengün. I love Şengün though too. I think he has a lot of potential. His jump shot looks very clean. He looks so polished. I think there's been comparisons to Jokic. He doesn't have the stature of Jokic, but he has that just instinct. He has that instinct of where to pass and where to kind of just stick himself, where to be in the post or when to be outside. He has that instinct. I think he's going to be a good NBA player. Will he be, an MVP like Jokic? Probably not, but I think it's a very interesting pick. But I have the Magic taking Wagner here at 8.
Yeah, and again, I think I don't know if the Magic would do it. I don't even know if the Spurs would do it, but I think that for a team that really doesn't have a core piece to that team, I guess Murray and maybe Keldon Johnson are probably their core pieces. That's not great right now. And they're always going to be able to compete. I don't know if there ever be like a top 3 pick in the draft. I just don't think they're ever going to be that bad. So I think you have to make somewhat of a splash here. Again, at 12, I just don't think the option at 12 there is for someone to be a really core piece of that team. It could really contribute, be possibly a 1 or a 2 on that team. So I think you have to do something for a team, again, that's going to go through a rebuild, and it's not much of a rebuild. I think they'd probably, like call it a retooling, which I don't think is the right thing for them. I think they probably should go full rebuild. So I think they should have to make somewhat of a splash. And I think that's the move. I would be surprised if it happens too, but I just think I think it'd be a good move for them. That's all.
Yeah, if the Spurs do trade up from 12, they would know something, and they would know that means Giddy wouldn't be there at 12, which he probably won't. That means they know that Şengün wouldn't be there at 12. That means they probably think that Garuba wouldn't be there at 12 as well. I think they'd be fine taking Garuba at 12. Maybe they wouldn't be. But yeah, I don't hate that trade. Number 9, the Kings. This is not too difficult for me. I think this is where Şengün goes. Like you were saying that you think he goes at 9 if this trade doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I think they take Şengün at 9. I mean, I already talked about him pretty much. I think he's going to be a good player in this NBA. I don't think he's a guy that's going to bust. He could be a bust, but I don't think so. His game doesn't look like it doesn't translate to the NBA. So yeah, I have the Kings taking him at 9. We'll see on fit. I mean, I don't know. I think he'll fit on the Kings. We'll see what happens to the roster. This team could look completely different come actual game 1. Maybe Fox isn't on this team. I mean, that's a possibility. I think he will be, but who knows? But yeah, I have the Kings taking Şengün here at 9.
Yeah, and I think he probably does go there in the actual draft because, again, I don't think that trade actually happens. I think it's a pretty good fit for them, but at 9, I have the Kings taking Franz Wagner. I think that it's a fit that probably works for this team. If you're going to keep these pieces together, I'm going to assume that Fox isn't at least traded this year, maybe next year, but at least for this year, he's still going to be on the team. Hield's probably not going to be there, to be honest, whether it's the Lakers, the Sixers, whatever other team, he's probably not going to be there. I think Wagner is just a good fit for them. It's kind of like, I'm not saying he would have been Bogdanovich, what they had obviously, the last couple years before they traded him, but it's someone who can kind of be that role. Obviously, he's a bigger guy. He's not going to be like a 6'5". I think he's 6'8", 6'9". Yeah, he's 6'9", but he's a guy who can shoot from the outside. The ball handling is better than people think. I think he can actually drive to the basket, can somewhat create his own shot a little bit. And I think working with Fox, I think it's a good point guard to have. Fox is one of the better players in the league, but he's still very underrated. He's not like a star player, but he's obviously like an all-star type guy. I think him working with Wagner definitely helps. We'll see what happens to that coaching staff. I don't like Walton as their coach, so I think that probably hurts him a little bit just in development and just obviously having a good coach and a good system. But I think at 9, that's probably a good pick for them. And I think it'd bode well for the future. I think he's someone that you could always rely on. Again, the shooting's always going to be there. The defense is going to be somewhat there, not great, obviously, but I think his ability to knock down shots is, what you need, and someone to be that tall and shooting shots like that, it's going to create more spacing, obviously, anyways. So I think it's just a good fit there and a good pick at 9.
Yeah. Going number 10, the Grizzlies traded up for this spot. I guess we never actually talked about the trade, I don't think.
Yeah,
but the
Pelicans
Pelicans
right after.
Yeah, the Pelicans did trade Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe. David Griffin, nice job being a GM. A nice GM work so far. But they traded those guys, and they traded
17.
No, they traded 10.
Well, yeah.
They traded 10 and a Lakers pick for 17 and Valanciunas. The Grizzlies move up from 17 to 10, and they get that Lakers pick. I think the guy that they've been rumored to take is Giddey, and I think they do take Giddey if he's available at 10. Now, the thing to me is there's a chance Giddey's not here at 10. So if they traded up at 10 for Giddey, that's scary to me, because I think there's a legitimate possibility that Giddey does go at 8, or he does go at 9, or he does go at 7, maybe even higher. I don't know how much I love Giddey. Just watching as much as you can watch. There's not too much of him online, really, but there's definitely at least highlights. His jump shot looks a little weird to me. I think you have to fix a number of mechanics. It just doesn't look like any shot in the NBA right now, which is scary. He looks a little slower than I would like for somebody like him if I'm going to pick him at 10. But I can't tell. I mean, he's not playing against, NBA quality guys like maybe even a Garuba has before in the Spain USA game. So it is kind of difficult to tell. I think he's a high ceiling guy, though. And if he's the guy they want at 10, then if he's here, then I have no reason not to mock him here.
Yeah, I think you make that trade knowing who you're going to take at 10. And there were some rumors that they wanted to move up again. The Grizzlies did, but I think they'll probably stick at 10, to be honest. And I think Giddey is that guy for them. Like you were saying, if it works out, with his ability, again, he's not the fastest guy. He can't really shoot that well. I don't know how much better that jump shot is going to get, but if it does work out, his ability to pass the ball, to handle the ball, to take some pressure off Ja, at least in that aspect, it will really work out. Again, his height definitely helps, being 6'8" already. But if it doesn't work out, I think we know the reasons why it won't. Like I said, the shooting's not really there. The quickness isn't exactly where you want it to be. But I think that you make this trade. Obviously, a lot of it is like salary and everything like that. But going up to 10, who you're going to take. And if you're going to stick there, I think it's going to be Giddey. That's why they moved up. So, I think we both agree on it. And I think that's probably who will be there at 10. He might go earlier, but I'd kind of be surprised. I think he fits there really nice at 10.
If there is a trade, I think a possible trade could be the Magic move down from 8 to 10. Maybe the Grizzlies move up and they leapfrog the Kings and they take Giddey at 8 just to maybe, make sure the Spurs don't leap up and grab him. And the Magic move down from 8 to 10, knowing that Wagner probably is still there, at least if that happens. I think that's a realistic trade that could happen. And maybe the Magic just get, I don't know what picks they have. It wouldn't be, they wouldn't get, I don't think they'd get a Grizzlies unprotected first, but maybe they get some other sort of pick that the Grizzlies have, or maybe some low quality player. I don't know, but that's a trade I could see happening. But in this mock, not really a need for it. So yeah.
Yeah, I actually kind of do like that trade though, because I think that's definitely a real possibility that, Grizzlies get Giddey at 8. Şengün goes 9 to the Kings, and Wagner's still there at 10 for the Magic, and the Magic would pick up something. So I think that's probably the most realistic trade that we probably said, so far, just in the fact of it happening today, because obviously that's more of like a draft day trade, obviously. So
Yeah, I'm thinking if I do want to like mock it. Um no, I
it's
think
not bad.
I'll have it. I'll throw it in. I'll revise my. I mean, I guess I'm not revising the picks, but I will say that the Grizzlies do move up to 8, and I'll say they take Giddey there, and I'll say the Magic get. I'll let you talk while I figure out what they get, but I say they take Wagner at 10. I want to see what the Grizzlies what they have as far as draft capital.
Yeah, I would say the only negative to that with that is that there's a real possibility of Giddey still being there at 10. But if the Grizzlies just for some reason don't think he would be, then obviously they have reason to trade up. And the Magic, I think, would be pretty happy to trade down, knowing that Wagner would still be there at 10, or whoever else they wanted would be there at 10. Because they're probably not going to take Şengün. They're not taking Giddey. So I think it's a good trade for the Magic for sure. It's just the Grizzlies side. Do you think Giddey's going to be there at 10? And if he's not, then obviously trading up is an option. So, but yeah, I think that's definitely one of the better trades we've probably come up with. And I think it's definitely the most realistic one. That's probably something you'll see at like pick 6 or pick 7. There'll be news of that. You'll see it on Twitter or whatever that trade happened. And I think most people, again, assuming that it's probably you may get like a future first, obviously protected if it's even the Grizzlies, I'd be kind of surprised by that. But yeah, I think that's not a bad trade though.
Yeah. Pick 11. The Hornets. I will let you go first.
Yeah, so I'm kind of struggling when I get to here. There's a couple guys left on the board that I think makes sense for the Hornets, but I'm not totally locked in on one guy for them. But if I had to pick, obviously I have to. I think Moses Moody definitely makes sense. I forget exactly who I went with at 11 for them before. I think it was a center, but I just forget who. But I think Moody makes sense also. Like a wing who could score and can shoot the three really well. It seems like he's going to be someone who is definitely going to be able to score. Obviously, playing with LaMelo in Charlotte, you're going to be running the floor, getting open looks, getting opportunities to shoot from the outside with someone with that kind of court vision. So I think it's definitely a really good fit for them. Again, the defense it's somewhat there. Honestly, the on-ball defense isn't as bad as you may think if you look at him, but I think just his ability to score, be pretty efficient at it. He shot 38% from 3 and 82% from the line. That's pretty good for a guy in college. You think that would probably get better as he gets in the NBA. The spacing's better, playing with better players, obviously. So I think that's a good pick for them at 11. I think he's a guy who could be a pretty key piece of their future. He has, like a third or fourth guy on that team. You have LaMelo, and then you probably would have to have another 1 or 2 on that team. But I think he's a pretty good 3 or 4 on that team. Obviously, going in the future, we'll see. Maybe they can make the playoffs or whatever. I guess they have Gordon Hayward, but I think Moody's just a really good piece for them in the future.
Moody is a guy I could see the Hornets taking here at 11. I mocked Jalen Johnson here in my previous mock draft. I think that could happen. It's difficult. I could see them taking Kai Jones here at 11. I wouldn't, but if there's going to be a reach in this draft, I think it'd probably end up being Kai. I feel like I should have a reach somewhere. I think the Hornets aren't a bad place to have that reach, but I think they could take a guy like Jalen Johnson, just a slow floor, high ceiling guy who can run the floor and who can make LaMelo look really good in transition, a guy who LaMelo could make better if you're building around LaMelo. Kai Jones is also the same, though. A rim running big. He can look great in transition with LaMelo. They could also take a guy like Moody. I mean, Devontae Graham's probably gone, or Malik Monk is probably gone. You're not keeping both of them. So Moody's a guy you could take. I'm going to say that they reach here, and I'm going to say they take Kai Jones here at 11. We're going to see reaches in the draft. I mean, it's a draft that happens no matter what every year. Maybe this is the Jalen Smith pick of this draft. I'm not saying Kai Jones is a bust. But yeah, I think there has to be a reach, and I think this makes sense. A guy who can run in transition super well. And frankly, if you're building around LaMelo, this is a solid pick for me.
Yeah, Kai Jones was the guy I had in my first mock draft at 11. I think it's a good pick too. Like, the rim run ability, being able to play with LaMelo. That's a team that loves transition, obviously. So I think Kai Jones, it definitely would be a little bit of a reach, but I think that if it does work out, I think that'd just be a really that'd be great value on that pick, taking him at 11, I think. But I guess we'll see. I think Moody or Jones possibly is definitely a real contender for that number 11 pick. But for 12, for me, I have the Magic there, based on that trade they had with the Spurs. So I have the Magic at 12. And I think they take Corey Kispert. I think it'd just be their second option to Franz Wagner if they weren't going to stay at 8. So I think Kispert's kind of just basically the same as Wagner. I think he's a little bit less, but they kind of do very similar stuff. Obviously, they shoot really well from 3. Kispert's even better from 3, 44.5% last year. But they're both guys who can, like I was saying with Wagner, who can take the ball off the dribble and kind of create his own shot a little bit. He's not just a 3-point shooter. He can drive to the basket. I think he fits with any team pretty well. On a Magic team playing with Anthony Fultz, I mean, we'll see what happens with that whole situation. But I think he's just a guy who any team would like to have, obviously, because of his shooting. His defense really isn't that bad. It's pretty average, if anything, maybe even a little bit above average, which you obviously already like anyways. And he's probably a guy who's going to have to get better defensively to play probably bigger minutes down the stretch. But I think it's just a good pick at 12. I think he fits there at 12. I don't really see him going later than 12, honestly. But if the Magic are there, even if it's the Spurs that are still there, I think he's still a possibility for them there also. But for me, with it being the Magic, I think the Magic take him at 12.
So I have the Spurs here at 12. I think they're a team that, like I was talking about, they're a team that, and you talked about, they're a team that would potentially like to move up. If they see Giddey getting taken, they might try to move up. But in my mock, I have the Grizzlies going up and taking Giddey rather than maybe waiting at 10. I think the Grizz find a way to get Giddey regardless, even if it is at 10. The Spurs here, I mean, obviously they love foreign guys. I think Garuba's the pick. I think it's a pick waiting to happen. If they don't get Şengün and they don't get Giddey, I think they want Giddey 1, Şengün 2, and I think Garuba is their third option. I think they're fine with any 3 of them. We saw Garuba in the Spain USA game. I didn't watch that full game, but I got to watch as much as I could have. He looks like a guy who's NBA ready. I mean, he looks like he belongs on that floor. And that USA team, obviously, it's not a perfect USA team like we've seen before with the Dream Team and all these teams, LeBron-led teams and all that. But it's a legit all-star team. I mean, that's a legitimate team that is, just should destroy every other team. And Garuba looked like he could play with those guys. Now, he didn't look on the same level as, a lot of them. Obviously, those are great players who have experience in the NBA, but Garuba's a guy I could see being a good player in the NBA. He's not gonna score the ball a bunch, but he's a guy who can rebound. He can play defense. He can run the floor. He shouldn't be a guy that has weaknesses in big moments. And he's a guy that I think can come in day one and fit with Pop and play under Pop and not complain. And he's not a guy that's going to take a while to develop either, I don't think, which if the Spurs are looking to compete, which I think they are, even though I 100% disagree with it, then this is the pick for me.
Yeah, I was kind of deciding between him and Kispert at 12. Again, I think I had him going there in my original mock draft. He definitely fits really well with that Spurs team, and he's definitely one of the more NBA-ready guys in this draft, which I think always helps, obviously. So I could definitely see him going there at 12 if the Spurs are there. Again, I had the Magic there. I don't know if the Magic would take him, but I think the Spurs definitely could take him if they're still there. But 13, it's the Pacers. This is kind of where I kind of run into a little bit of trouble, only because you still have Davion Mitchell there, and I think he probably fits here. But I don't know if the Pacers would exactly want him here. And again, I still have Usman on the board, so I'm kind of between them. I think I'd probably go Usman here, to be honest. The thing is, if Mitchell doesn't go here, I don't really know where he goes because you look at the other couple teams past that. I don't know I don't know how much farther he'd fall. I wouldn't say it's past pick 16, but again, I don't even know because who really knows what those teams want. But again, I have Garuba going here. Like you said, he's the most NBA ready type of guy, or one of the most NBA ready type of guys. But him playing with Carlisle and Indiana, it seems like they're probably going to trade TJ Warren. Probably Miles Turner's probably going to be out the door also. So I think he can fit on that team. He could probably start on that team, to be honest. We'll see what happens. His first year, I think he just knows what to do on the court, which I think really helps. The offensive game is going to get better for sure. But that height and that size that he has, I think is huge. Again, the defense is definitely there for sure. So I think he just fits well with a Carlisle team, a Pacers team that, is definitely a playoff team. Him and Sabonis, I think I think he fits well with a Sabonis type of guy. So I think that's a good pick there at 13 for the Pacers in Usman Garuba.
So this is a difficult pick for me. I don't even remember who I mocked here at 13. In my previous draft, I'd have to think. I'd have to go back and check. Because I want to say I had Mitchell at 14 to the Warriors. If well, okay, so Mitchell's a pick that fits here for me. I think it's difficult because if it's not Mitchell, I still have Moody on the board, Trey Murphy, Cam Thomas. Some like Jared Butler more than Davion Mitchell, so he's a guy that could go there. I picked Zaire Williams here at 13. I think.
Yeah, you did.
Zaire Williams is a guy that I'm definitely big on. I don't know that he goes at 13. I'm gonna say they take Mitchell. I think it's a mistake. I think Williams is better. I think Moody will be better, although they're not similar. Murphy, I think, will be better. I think Duarte might be better. I mean, he's not really the same. I think Jared Butler might be better. Who knows? But I think the Pacers take Mitchell here at 13. If the Warriors were at 14 and Mitchell did fall to them, I think Mitchell would probably go at 14, unless they take either Jared Butler or Chris Duarte at 14 if they're there. Obviously, I don't have them being there, but yeah, I'll take Mitchell. The Pacers at 13 is a guy who can come in day one. This team could look completely different day one of the regular season. Brogdon might not be there. Sabonis might not be there, but I think Sabonis will be there because Carlisle likes Sabonis. But Brogdon might not be there. Miles Turner might not be there. TJ Warren might not be there. Justin Holiday might not be. I mean, there's a bunch of players that might not be here. This team could look completely different. Who knows? But I think Mitchell's a guy that they would love to have at 13. So
yeah, and I think if Moody is there at 13, again, I am going 11. I think if Moody is there at 13, I think they'd like him also. But I think they have a really interesting choice between if Moody's there, if Mitchell's there, if Usman is there. I think they have a lot of options there at 13. So we'll see what they go with. But you had Mitchell, I had Usman. So I guess moving on to 14, the last pick that we'll do, but it's the same I had in my first draft. I have them going with Chris Duarte. Just a sharpshooter from the outside, 42.5% from three. An older guy for sure, 23 years old, a senior in college, played all 4 years, obviously, but I think he's got good size for them. I think he can, again, be a guy come off the bench who can bring scoring to them. Obviously one of those championships obviously was the star players and Curry and Durant and Thompson and Green and everyone, but their bench always came up huge, especially before Durant got there when they had more of a bench. But it was always those key guys coming off the bench, and Barbosa and Livingston and like Mo Spates and a couple other guys. They always came up big. Not saying that he's going to be like just a role player only, but I think that his scoring off the bench just gives them some extra offense when Curry or Clay's on the court. Again, we think Clay's going to come back and be like, exactly what he was before, but he's had 2 major injuries on his legs. He's not going to be the same defensively. We'll see how much he even plays, to be honest. Like, how many games he's going to rest, how many minutes. They're probably going to watch his minutes. So I think a Duarte, obviously I had them taking Book Night. I think those guys are going to be huge for them coming off the bench. I think they're definitely NBA ready for sure. So I think if they can get Duarte at 14, unless someone else drops to them, I think Duarte is a really good pick for them at 14. I think he makes an impact immediately on their team, just like Book Night.
yeah, 14 for me. I have the Wizards here. It's complicated because they do need to kind of fill their holes. I'm assuming in this world, Russell Westbrook, like you said, is not on this team. Obviously, Beal's not. I'm going to have them take Moses Moody here at 14. They're going to need scoring some way, and I think Moody can provide that. Maybe he's not a 1, but he should be able to run the point at least a little bit, if not just be the scorer that they need. They're going to give their rookies a lot of playing time, I'm assuming. So Kuminga is a guy that's going to play, and Moody's a guy that's going to play. So yeah, I think they take Moody here. We can talk about, we can talk about like picks 15 and on. I mean, are there any other players in this draft that you like that we didn't mock? Because I think there are a bunch of other players that could be really, really good / potential top 5 guys in this draft that I didn't even talk about yet.
I think I definitely like Trey Murphy. I just didn't know where a fit would be in that first 14 picks, but I think I really do like him. And whatever team does get him after that, I think that's going to be a really good pick. Jalen Johnson obviously has the high ceiling, but what's that floor looking like? I know you talked about him in your first mock draft. I think that a good situation, a good coach, a good system for him, I think then you could really see his potential. But again, that's a lot to ask for a guy like that. But I think if it works out, it definitely does work out. So those are two guys I definitely liked. I just didn't exactly know where to go in those first 14 picks. But I would say those are the two guys that I probably wish I could have mocked, but I just don't see a fit for them.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the Wizards do get the 15th pick, so they take Moses Moody here, and they get the next pick after that. That's where I would probably have Jalen Johnson going. I think they get a guy in Kuminga, who's their low floor, high ceiling guy. I think they get Moses Moody, who's a guy that they can kind of fill that role with and actually have a formidable team, or not. I guess not formidable, but they at least they're at least rolling something out there that fits, so then they give players a chance to develop. And I think Jalen Johnson's another guy that they can take as another low floor, high ceiling guy. So Jalen Johnson and Kuminga are their picks that are just kind of like, hopefully they work out and be stars. And Moody's their guy that's like, all right, we think he's going to be good. He's probably safer than the other two guys, but we question actually how high his ceiling is, but he's a guy that can actually kind of make this team work a little bit. So yeah, I guess winners in this draft for me. I mean, obviously the Pistons are winners. I think if Mobley goes to 3 with the Cavs, I think the Cavs are winners. I think the Raptors are winners getting Suggs at 4. I think the Warriors are winners trading pick 7, 14 Wiseman and Wiggins for Beal. I'm still a big Wiseman guy. I like Wiseman. But I still think that's a win for the Warriors. I think the Wizards are huge winners as well. I think it's a win-win. Wizards arguably are the biggest winner, not because of who they're getting, but just because you're admitting defeat. I guess you're actually moving on, and you're setting up for a successful future long term, and just admitting that competing is worthless, which I think is huge for teams. So moving on and getting like I talked about Kuminga. Maybe it's somebody else. Kuminga though, Moody, Jalen Johnson. Maybe you take Keon Johnson or Trey Murphy or whatever. But obviously Wiggins is a guy that, I mean, we'll see his future, in Washington. That would be more for salary, but Wiseman's another guy. I mean, he was just the second pick in the draft. I mean, he could be a really good guy. I mean, we don't know yet, but he has the potential to, so.
Yeah, and I think winners for me would be if the Warriors end up with Bouknight and Duarte. I think that's an amazing draft, maybe the best draft out of anyone, especially with those two picks and two guys who can make an impact right away for a hopeful championship team, at least definitely a playoff team. So I think that would be huge wins. Obviously, Mobley at 3, I think is a huge win for the Cavs. I don't really trust our organization to develop him the right way and, kind of do the right moves possible. But I think just having him, I think it's a huge win, obviously. So those are my 2 big winners. I think also potentially, if the Spurs are to make that trade, I think that's big, obviously. I kind of doubt that's going to happen, but I think that'd be a really good trade for them. If the Hornets were to get Moody at 11, I think that's a good one for them too. So I think there's definitely, obviously the first 3 guys are definitely this, like the superstar potential guys. And I think there's maybe a couple of the guys that could somewhat reach that level, maybe, probably not, but I think there's just really good picks outside those top 3 guys. I guess you could say outside the top 4 guys and Suggs, but there's just a lot of good fits, got key pieces, good, even if you're just a good role player, which is that's kind of what the draft is. Once you get to that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, it's really just finding about key role players that you hope can develop into like an all-star type player. But if they're just really good role players who do what they do and or excel at what they're doing, that's kind of what you're looking for in the draft anyways. So I think that's kind of a win for most teams anyways.
Give me a guy that we haven't really talked about that much, that you think is a potential top 10 guy.
Like someone that we didn't mock, or someone that we did mock?
Someone that we didn't mock. Someone we didn't mock that is probably going between picks 20 to 30, 20 to 60, I'll just say. Give me a guy. I'll go first to give you some time. I think there's actually a bunch of guys. I mean, a guy that I talked about in my last mock draft, but I'm going to go with Zaire Williams. He's a guy that may go in the lottery. He may not. His defensive skill is going to be there. Offensively, I think it develops. Will he be able to put it all together? We don't really know that. He didn't have a great year at Stanford, but I mean, in high school, he was a guy that was looking to be a top whatever pick, definitely in the lottery, definitely in the top 10. Obviously, things didn't work out, but I mean, it was a COVID year, essentially. Like, how much can I really blame him? It's just one bad year, and he has the talent. It wouldn't surprise me. It honestly wouldn't shock me if Zaire Williams was a top 5 guy in this draft.
I mean, that would shock me, but oh,
It
you
would
mean at the end?
surprise
You mean
me.
at the end of it, like their end of the career or whatever?
Yes, yes, yes.
Even that would still surprise me. I guess obviously there's still the possibility of that, but I mean, for sure, out of high school, he was like he was one of the top guys coming out of high school. I think he was number 7. I think he was coming out of high school. Looking back on that list, but college just didn't really work out for him, which can happen with some guys when they get to the right team and stuff. Then that potential just shows through. So I think Zaire is definitely a good case for that. I think another guy who was like that, and I'm not expecting this guy to be, like an all-star or anything, but just like possibly a starter or just a key bench guy. Greg Brown, who was from Texas, he had all those big hypes and potential and everything about him when he was in college, even coming out of high school, and it just didn't really work out. But he still has that talent, and I think if he goes to a right team, he maybe end of first round, probably second round guy. But I think if you put him in the G League, let him develop and really show that he is that type of player that he was supposed to be, I think he can go onto a team and be a key bench guy, possibly even a starter. So I think that's another guy for me, again, lower in the draft than like Zaire. Zaire is definitely going to go first round. I don't think Greg Brown, again, he might go first round, probably second round, but he's just another guy for me that if he gets with the right coach, the right system, and someone knows how to develop him, because that's really the biggest thing is his development. He's not great with fundamentals. Then I think he can be a guy, like I was saying, a key bench guy or even a starter.
I'll give one more as well. A guy who will go in the second round, most likely, Isaiah Todd, kind of in the shadows of Kuminga and Jalen Green in the Ignite team. Will he be, a star in this league? Probably not, but can he be a solid starter and a guy who maybe ends up being better than Kuminga or maybe even better than Green in some alternate, in maybe some alternate reality, he ends up being better than Green. Maybe this is that reality. Potentially. I think it's the odds are very small, but potentially.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's pretty much it, unless you have anything else to add. I'll quickly just go straight through my mock draft. I have Cade at 1, Green at 2, Mobley at 3, Suggs at 4, Barnes at 5. I know you probably didn't write everything down, but I was kind of doing it while you were talking. But so Cade at 1, Green 2, Mobley 3, Suggs 4, Scottie Barnes 5, Bouknight at 6. I have the Warriors trading 7, 14, Wiseman and Wiggins for Beal. The Wizards take Kuminga at 7. The Magic trade down and take Giddey. Sorry, the Magic trade down to 10, and the Grizzlies take Giddey at 8. The Magic get number 10 and a Jazz top 6 protected first round pick in 2022 that the Grizzlies have. So that's what I have them trading in order to move up from 10 to 8. The Kings take Şengün at 9. The Magic take Franz Wagner at 10. Kai Jones at 11 to the Hornets. Garuba at 12 to the Spurs. Mitchell at 13 and Moses Moody at 14, with Jalen Johnson being that 15th pick. I'm saying it because it's back-to-back Wizards picks. So realistically, it either could be 15 or 14.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't write mine down, but we had the same top 5. Then I had Kuminga, Bouknight.
We'll throw it down in the description. Look,
yeah.
we can look at. I'll have both the mock drafts in the description. I'll put a spoiler thing above it, so hopefully people don't look at it for the video. But yeah, both of our mock drafts will be in the description. Other guys, that I didn't talk about that you had Kispert in there. I don't have Kispert in there. I think Kispert's going to be an elite shooter. Athletically, does he have it? I don't know. Defensively, does he have it? It's not. He doesn't. It's not like he doesn't have it. But will it be good enough for the NBA? I'm not sure. He'll be a guy that isn't a complete bust, though. That's all I know. But
yeah,
do I see a lottery team taking him? Probably not. If a team was going to, I think the Pelicans were potentially that team. Obviously, the Pelicans traded out, so I don't know. I think you had him to the Spurs at 12, right?
The Magic.
The Magic. Sorry, you had him going to the Magic at 12 because you had that trade, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that I would mock that, but if that happened, that would be interesting. I don't view Kispert as a guy who would go to a team like the Magic who are looking to kind of just develop. Again, the development staff is garbage. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Appreciate everybody who's watched the mock draft. I'm excited for this draft. I find myself very, very excited for this draft. And I think this has potential to be not a 2003 draft or, one of those types of drafts, but a very, very, very solid draft that, we talk about in that conversation of what were the best drafts.
I think it definitely has a chance, especially with that top three. And it really comes after that. But that top three, I think they all have a really good chance of being all-star type players, superstar, MVP type players. I think all three of them do. And like I said, I think Mobley is the number one in of those top three. But again, I think all three have a pretty good chance.
Yeah, it's gonna be so interesting. I'll probably react to this draft, probably right after the draft, maybe, or in the coming days. Maybe it's on the Clips channel. We'll see how many we get right out of 14. It's gonna be interesting. Will this Warriors trade happen? I hope Beal gets dealt. I really do. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see Beal trapped in Washington any longer. I don't care for the Wizards as a team. They're fun to watch, but they're obviously never going to compete at a serious level. So I'd like to see something happen there. But yeah, I mean, do you have anything else to say? Or
Um, I guess one quick thing I just saw, a tweet about it that it seems like the Lakers and the Kings have a Kuzma for Hield trade that looks like it's going to happen probably before the draft or whatever. But that I just saw a tweet that said that's pretty close to happening. So we'll see if that does
from
happen.
Woj?
Not from Woj, but from Mark Stein. So
Okay. That would be interesting.
I don't know who else would be in that or whatever. Obviously, picks, whatever, a couple other players, but
I mean, I think Hield's a good addition for the Lakers. Obviously, Kuzma's not it. I don't know that that's a great return for the Kings based on what they could have gotten, all these years while they've had Hield. I don't know, but yeah, that's interesting. Everything's down in the description. Me and Brandon's mock drafts will be in the description. I'll try to put timestamps in as well for each team's picks. Social medias and all that in the description as well. Appreciate everybody stay to the end. Feel free to comment what you think about these players. I want to see what people think. Who do you guys think the best player in this draft is going to be? Give me some steals. Give me some, other things in the draft. Anything you have to say. Actually, one thing I want to say before we go. Do you have any thoughts on the Simone Biles thing in the Olympics? We haven't talked about the Olympics at all. We're not like an Olympics. We're not Olympics people, but do you have any thoughts on the Simone Biles situation?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I don't really know if I want to say it, but
no, I want you to. I want you to.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, I think it's a serious thing. I think it's something that, I mean, like if we were in that situation, I think we probably feel the same things. But at the same time, I also think that that's what comes with it, being in that pressure and having everyone looking at you. And she did also lean into it. I mean, it's not like she just never said anything about it. She did lean into it and wanting the pressure. So when it happened, it definitely was something that, and you always see the reactions on social media, everyone kind of saying the same stuff. But I think that some of it was her fault. Some of it is like, if you were put in that situation, you have the same feelings. But I don't know. I kind of do feel a little, I don't even know the right word to be, but a little like, you kind of had it coming a little bit only because that's kind of what she was going for. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you say, and I was having that same opinion, and I still do have that same opinion. But I also will say, and I wanted to be the guy who was like, if Tom Brady pulled out of halftime of the Super Bowl in 2016 because he thought that the backup would have been I think was I forget, I don't know, was it Garoppolo? No, it wasn't Garoppolo. It was it might have been Hoyer. I don't even remember. I'm trying to think.
It was Garoppolo in 2016. It was Garoppolo.
Are you sure?
Yeah, he got traded after that.
I think it might have been that season. Whatever, whoever the backup was, I don't even remember. It's similar to that in a way, but at the same time, it's different because it is just different. It's gymnastics. It's an individual. In this case, it is an individual sport. I mean, you're not playing with other people, even though I guess the first one she pulled out of was a team thing, but it's an individual sport. And, seeing all the other Olympians and people support her. And I think it was the right move. I mean, if something's not going to work, I don't see why you would push with it. And the injury is one thing, and I'm not as concerned. I mean, I am concerned with that, but to me, I mean, if you just know that it's not going to happen and that you would hurt your team, then I mean, that's the reality of things. And if that's what she thinks, and the twisties are a legitimate thing. So I don't know too much about gymnastics, but I have seen people compare it to what if, Brady pulled out of a Super Bowl, or what if, X, athlete pulled out of X event. I don't know that that's a fair comparison, but at the same time, I mean, it is a fair comparison at the same time, because you are called the GOAT by everybody. And if you are the greatest of all time, you would like to see more than one gold medal in the Olympics for the individual gymnastics, whatever it's called. I mean, just because one gold, medal is a lot, but I mean, when you look at somebody like Phelps, and it's different because you can't win 23 gold medals as a gymnast in that one individual event. But it is difficult, but I don't think she made a bad decision. That's all I'm going to say. That's my opinion, but
yeah, I feel like we're saying the kind of the same stuff.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I haven't watched too much of the Olympics. I've tried to watch as much as I can, but I mean, we're just not Olympic people.
It's also on at like 8 a.m. but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Olympics as well. The ratings have not been great. I mean, I think it's on par with a lot of other sports stuff we've seen, just with COVID going down and all that. But yeah, I mean, that's all I want to talk about was that Simone Biles thing briefly. So yeah, we'll be back after the draft. Everybody have fun watching the draft. Keep our mocks in your minds, because I actually am confident about my mock. I'm confident. So yeah.
I think
I think I have a better mock than you. I mean, that's just my opinion. But
well, I think if I don't do that Spurs trade, obviously there's going to be a couple trades. I do really like that Magic Grizzlies trade. I think that I really do like that trade. But I think the players that I have, I think in the spots that they're going to, even if the teams aren't the same, I really do like that. I think that probably is how it works out, to be honest.
Yeah, if I had to go against a couple picks, I think one would be Kispert to the Magic. I don't love Kispert to the Magic. I'm trying to think of other ones, but other than that, I think you have a good.
Just to like go against the opposite of that. I mean, you had Wagner going there. I mean,
I think Wagner is going to go there.
I know, but Kispert's almost the same player that Wagner is. They're very similar, so I think that it's not crazy to think that Kispert couldn't go to the Magic, especially when they're trading down in my situation where Wagner is obviously not going to be there. So I think, again, they're not the same player. They're not. I think Wagner is better, but they're similar players, and I think it's not crazy to think that the Magic wouldn't take him. And I think he's going in the lottery. Again, if the Pelicans were at 10, I think he's for sure going number 10. The Pelicans aren't there now, but I think he's definitely still going in the lottery.
I think there's a chance. I don't think it happens. I think Wagner's a better player than Kispert. Not a better shooter right now, but I think he's bigger. He's taller. He's got more potential on the defensive end. He's got more potential as just a dribbler and a ball handler. I still view Kispert as a guy who's probably going to be a spot up shooter, maybe like a kind of like a Joe Harris potentially, which is a great player, right? But I think Wagner has a much higher ceiling, and I think that's why he's, to me, a better pick for the Magic. I don't like, let's just say he's Joe Harris. I don't think Joe Harris does much on the Magic is my only point. But
all right, I guess I wouldn't disagree with that, I guess.
But I mean, that's it. This episode's been going on for long enough. I already said everything, so we will be back after the draft.